Low grades, bad love life. Nothing a local Serbian grandma can fix with a bit of water, charcoal, rakia, and some dried leaves. Probably. Let me provide you with more context. Before Christianity was forced upon Serbia in the 9th century, Serbian people believed in the existence of many gods and creatures of Slavic mythology. That came with a whole lot of rituals, beliefs, actions, and recited phrases. But Christianity considered any other religious practices a danger to its own existence, so naturally they were banned. Or at least an attempt was made. Many parts of that old culture were lost over time, but Serbian people were so adamant about keeping certain traditions alive that the church had no other choice but to accept them, so people managed to save some customs from falling into oblivion, one of those being tying a red thread around a newborn's wrist. Many of these customs are to this day classified as pagan superstition by the Christian Church, and many are considered outright witchcraft. Today, everyone in Serbia knows at least one grandma who practices magic, and she's almost always on your dad's side of the family. Don't ask why, no one knows. It's not like grandpas are not to be seen dabbling in the art of magic, but grandmas carry the business. And apparently the worst person to curse you would be a widow. Magic is most commonly split into white and black, but old Slavic people believed energy isn't simply good or bad. Rather, it's one big source that can be tapped into if you possess certain abilities, and you can use that energy to your advantage, for good or evil, depending on who you are as a person. Some people have a greater gift than others, and are believed to have terrible side effects in terms of health if they choose not to use that gift to help others. Christianity will recognize and characterize many Slavic mythical creatures as spirits, or malevolent spirits for that matter, commonly referred to as demons, but Slavic gods and creatures possessed many human traits, meaning they could be good or bad depending on the nature of each interaction with a human. You will often think, wait, why would they do this ritual if this being often caused more pain than joy to humans? And the answer to that would be that people would try to persuade the being into being nice. Or if they thought the being rarely meant good, they would do everything in their power to prevent the being from coming anywhere near. People believe that evil forces, as calling them spirits would not be technically correct, reside in the dark and in water. That's why to this day old people say you never leave your house or go visit someone after the sun sets. People often used to borrow stuff from neighbors such as flour, salt, fire, live coal, and more. If they really had to go ask for something when it was already dark, they couldn't come inside, but the head of the house would bring, for example, coal to the doorstep and break a chunk off right there to give to the neighbor. Not necessarily because they thought that the neighbor intentionally brought evil forces with them, but they could have collected them while walking around outside at night. If you're giving them something else, you first had to put down live coal on the doorstep and then hand it to the neighbor. In most places, Rooster's first daybreak song was said to be the exact moment evil forces would run and hide from sunlight. But if you recently visited a farm, I'm sure you noticed the damn bird squawks all night long, so I have no idea how that whole thing worked back then. Unfortunately, borrowing something from someone was also great grounds for throwing a curse on that person or their whole family. When you suspect you were cursed, you could go see a local grandma so she could give you a spell, or if you believed yourself skilled enough, you could come up with your own incantation. They tended to repeat everything 3 times in most cases, in a true Serbian manner, that goes something along the lines of, I measure salt for you, I light up this fire, come early tomorrow so I can give you flour. And apparently that person shows up tomorrow morning to borrow something, not necessarily flour. Now that you know who's behind the curse, you can decide what you want your next step to be. There is a local saying, Zaklela se zemlja raju da se sve tajne saznaju, which translates to, Earth swore to heaven that all secrets would be revealed, meaning nothing could stay a secret forever. So the person throwing a curse would eventually expect you to find out what they did. And surprise, surprise, Serbian people often fought with their neighbors. There is even a popular saying, the komši crkne krava, made the neighbor's cow die, showing just how much evil people often wanted for their closest neighbors, even if it meant they gained no benefit from it. Fun stuff. Based on this alone, there are about 1,000 different ways you can cause harm to your neighbor and maybe even secure benefit for yourself in the process. And that's the dark path we won't follow further. Serbian people always saw lots of symbolism in the doorstep of their house. Like vampires can't come in unless explicitly invited, witches were thought to be unable to come into your home if a sharp knife was stuck into your door or window frame. They would sprinkle salt in a full line under the doorstep, believing evil can't cross it and come inside. To every guest, people would offer pieces of bread which the guest would dip in salt and eat. This was primarily done as people believed witches could do you no harm if they ate bread and salt in your home, but it eventually started being offered to every guest, just in case probably, as we know how much people used to love their neighbors, right? People in rural parts of Serbia still keep this tradition alive. You'll often see people dressed in traditional Serbian attire offering bread and salt to visiting politicians. As far as doorstep symbolism goes, that's where the household guardian snake was believed to reside. It was said to be the ancestor's spirit and was never supposed to be seen by household members. In extremely rare occasions when it was seen, it meant that it came out to forewarn the family of great danger. If a family member were to kill the snake, that would anger the ancestors, so the family would not have their protection in the upcoming dangerous situation. Apart from that, people believed snakes to be magical beings and possessed great supernatural powers. They would kill snakes they came across around specific dates between Mala and Velika Gospojina, as that's when snakes were thought to present the biggest threat to humans. A killed snake's head would be dried and used to plant basil through its skull, believing that basil grown like that and then dried possessed incredible magical capacity. One recorded use for it was to put it under your pillow, allowing you to communicate with one of your deceased household members. Another time when people would kill a snake was if encountered before Đurđevdan, May 6th, as they called them sinners, probably because it was still too cold for snakes to be out and about, so they figured it must be an evil creature hiding in snake form. If they were to kill a snake to cut it open vertically and have a sick person slide underneath it due to its magical healing power, they would often bury the snake on that very spot and keep lighting candles for some time as they would for a human. It's also worth noting that Serbian people believed snakes and dragons to be the same sort of being, seeing that snakes that lived to be 40 years of age turned into dragons in some places, or that a snake that ate another snake turned into a dragon in other places. Dragons were considered village protectors, and I encourage you to go find more information on dragons in Slavic mythology, as there's quite a bit to be said about them, and apparently people believe they still exist. What also made people suitable to practice magic was their physical appearance. If you had any unique characteristics, you definitely would have been considered fit for this profession. That could have been a birthmark, unusual eyebrows, scars, or even just a piercing gaze. No wonder Babaroga is the most famous witch around. So remember, kids, you're not ugly. You're just born to be a witch. The most powerful magic is said to be Vlaška magia, found in eastern Serbia, predominantly populated by Vlasi, who are believed to have lived in that area before Slavic people settled. They have customs that are somewhat shocking to people outside their community, and nearly every household has an expert in magic. Today, Vlasi seem to be a mix of Serbian and Romanian people, and they have their own language that is so ancient and doesn't even have a written form, yet it's still in verbal use today. As Serbia and Romania were always in great relations throughout history, Romania being the only neighbor Serbia never fought against, Vlasi seem to be okay declaring themselves Serbian, seeing that their names are in no way different from other Serbian people. I figure there's probably something in the rituals and incantations in an unknown language that provides visitors with some sort of reassurance that Grandma's efforts will prove fruitful, but I never met a true believer whom I could ask to explain the appeal of seeking supernatural assistance in this day and age. I hear that people will usually visit grandmas whose service was recommended and some would proven to work, but I'll leave it up to you to decide if you believe it's effective or not. Please don't take this as a challenge and send your magic-wielding grandmas after me to prove a point, because I just meant to say I don't believe every Serbian grandma is on Gandalf's level of proficiency.